I had what I would call my most terrifying experience this past New Year's Eve. Really, I never used to care about New Year's Eve. To me, it was just another loud night with fake smiles, some cheap fireworks, and people pretending their lives were about to magically reset, which to me was the worst part of it all. It started simple. I live alone in a small apartment on the edge of town. Most people had already left for parties. I stayed home because I had an early shift the next morning and didn't feel like dealing with drunk strangers. Around 10:30 p.m., I ordered food and turned on the TV to one of those New Year countdown shows. The streets outside were oddly quiet. No music, no fireworks yet, just cold wind and empty sidewalks. Just then, I heard a knock. At first, I ignored it just to be sure. People sometimes knock on the wrong door in that building. But the knocking came again, slow and heavy, not rushed like someone who made a mistake. I checked through the peephole. There was a man standing there, maybe in his late 30s. He wasn't holding anything, just standing close to the door, staring straight ahead. Obviously, I wasn't going to open the door. I waited. After about 10 seconds, he knocked again, with the same slow rhythm. Then he leaned in and said my apartment number out loud. That got my attention. I asked who he was through the door. He said he was from the building management and that there was a problem with the water lines. He said he needed to come in and check my sink before midnight. That made absolutely no sense. No one does maintenance on New Year's Eve, and they definitely don't send one guy without a uniform. I told him I was calling the front office. His voice changed immediately. He said that wouldn't be necessary and that I was wasting time, that I should just open the door so it could be done quickly. I stayed quiet. I looked at him again through the peephole. His hands were clenched, like he was holding back anger. I didn't say anything. After about a minute, he walked away. To be honest, I kind of felt a bit of a relief. I waited until I heard the stairwell door close. I thought that was the end of it. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps outside again. At first, I thought it was the food I had ordered earlier. Then I heard voices, more than one. I checked the peephole again. They were two men now, same guy as before, and another one behind him. The new guy had his phone out, shining a light down the hallway. The first guy knocked again, this time faster. He said he knew I was inside because my TV was loud. He said I had two choices, either open the door now or deal with him later. My heart started pounding so hard I could literally hear it. What did he mean by that? I grabbed my phone and called the police. While it rang, the knocking stopped. I didn't hang up. I stayed quiet. Then I heard something I don't think I will ever forget. The sound of metal scraping against my door. They were trying to force the lock. The dispatcher was talking, but I barely heard what she said. I told her what was happening. She said officers were on the way. The scraping got louder. Then pounding. They were slamming their shoulders into the door. I moved to the kitchen and grabbed the heaviest knife I owned. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold it. I wasn't trained for this. I stood behind the door, listening to them breathe and curse on the other side. One of them said the lock would give soon. The other told him to hurry before someone noticed. That was when fireworks started going off outside. It was midnight, some kind of perfect timing for the worst that could happen. Explosions filled the air, covering the noise of what was happening in my hallway. Nobody would hear me if they got in. But then something unexpected happened. Sirens. At first, I thought it was just part of the celebrations. Then they got really louder. Real police sirens. The banging stopped. Through the peephole, I saw the men running down the hallway. The police arrived less than a minute later. They searched the building and caught one of them in the stairwell. The other man got away. The officer later told me those men had been going door to door, pretending to be maintenance, looking for people home alone to rob. If I had opened that door, things would have gone very differently. Yo, so I used to think bars were the safest places to meet people. You got lights, music, cameras, bartenders, and a bunch of strangers all packed together. It felt public, which made it feel safe. That idea almost got me seriously hurt one night, and ever since then, I don't make small talk with anyone I don't already know. This happened on a slow weekday night, right after work. I stopped by this little bar near my apartment. Not one of those loud party places, just a quiet spot with a few TVs, soft music, and people sitting alone with their drinks. I took a seat at the counter, ordered a beer, and started scrolling on my phone. I was sitting head bent to my phone when the guy next to me spoke. He didn't come off weird at first, just friendly. He asked if I had a long day. I said yeah. That was it, normal small talk, the kind you don't even think twice about. He was clean cut, had decent clothes, and had a friendly smile. The kind of person you wouldn't mind sitting next to on a train. We talked a bit about work, how the city was getting expensive, how tired everyone always looked. Then he offered to buy me another drink. I didn't ask him to, but I didn't say no either. The second drink came. Then the conversation got a little more personal. He asked where I lived, but I kept it vague. He asked if I was meeting anyone. I said no. While we were talking, I observed something. Every time the bartender walked away, his tone changed just a little. He often leaned closer. His voice got lower, like he didn't want anyone else hearing. He asked if I ever went out late by myself. I just laughed it off. He nodded slowly. By the time I finished the second drink, I felt heavier than I should have. My head wasn't spinning, but my body felt slow, like I was wading through water. I hadn't eaten much that day, so I tried to tell myself that was all it was. The guy offered to walk me home. I said no, but he insisted. I told him I lived the other way, but that didn't push him away. He said I looked tired. I shouldn't be walking alone like this. He said people get hurt that way. That sounded off to me. It didn't sound like a concern. It was more like a warning. I stood up, suddenly very aware that my legs felt weak. I went to pay my tab, and when I turned back, he was standing way too close. He said I should sit back down, that I didn't look okay. The bartender noticed something was off. I saw it in his eyes. He asked if everything was all right. But then I said yes, louder than I meant to. The guy's hand was on my arm now, not like he was grabbing me. It was just resting there like he owned the space. I pulled away and said I was leaving. I stepped outside and the cold air hit me hard. My head cleared just enough for fear to finally break through. I then realized how wrong everything felt, how heavy my body still was, and how calm that guy had been. I started walking fast. I didn't look back until I heard footsteps. He was behind me, not rushing. He was just following. I turned a corner and ducked into a convenience store. I stayed inside until he passed. He didn't look surprised when he saw me there, just annoyed. I waited 10 more minutes before going home the long way. The next day I went back to the bar. I asked the bartender about him. He said the guy wasn't a regular. He said he had also tried the same thing with another customer earlier that week, but she left before finishing her drink. They never saw him again. So yeah, my suspicion was right, and now I don't chat with strangers at bars. My aunt hosts a late Christmas get-together every year. Not on the 25th, but sometime after, when people were free and tired of leftovers. That year it fell on the 29th. Snow had been falling on and off for days, piling up in soft, uneven layers along the street. Most businesses were closed, schools were out, people were just drifting through time waiting for New Year's. I always say the days between Christmas and New Year feel fake, like the world is just waiting for something to start again. Everything was slow. Everyone was home. Nobody was really watching what was going on. My aunt's house was big and packed tight with family. Kids were running in and out of rooms. There was just this kind of noise that made adults stop paying attention to details. That was when my cousin went missing for a few hours, and nobody noticed until it almost became permanent. I was 19 then, old enough to help, but young enough to still get ignored. My cousin Leo was 11, quiet kid, always stayed close to adults. That night, he was glued to his phone, sitting near the back hallway, half watching the TV, half texting someone none of us knew. I noticed that because it was strange for him. He didn't usually talk to anyone outside the family. At some point, I saw him get up and head down the hallway toward the guest bedroom. I figured he needed some space or something like a charger, which was completely normal. What I didn't know was that he had been talking to someone. Later, when everything went wrong, we found the messages on his phone. Someone had been telling him that a package for him had been delivered to the back of the house, telling him to come get it before it got buried in the snow. Back then, nobody knew that. We were all busy eating and talking and pretending like we were all enjoying the family gathering. About half an hour passed before my aunt asked where Leo was. She said it was time for dessert and he hadn't come back. People called his name, no answer. At first, nobody was worried. It was a big house with lots of rooms. Kids hide, phones sometimes distract them. I went down the hallway and checked the guest room. It was empty. I checked the bathroom. Empty. Laundry room. Empty. That was when I noticed something. The back door was unlocked. Snow had blown in, leaving a thin white line across the floor. Someone had been outside. I called his name again, louder this time. Still no answer. The adults finally stopped talking. We all went outside into the cold, calling for him, with our voices sinking into the snow. The yard was big, surrounded by trees, and the storm had made everything quiet. That's when I saw the footprints, small ones, leading away from the house and toward the trees, and next to them, bigger ones. Someone else had been walking with him. My heart started racing. I yelled for everyone to come look. The adults gathered around. Their faces changed as they saw what I saw. My uncle grabbed his coat and followed the trail. I decided to go with him. The footprints led past the edge of the yard and into the woods, where the snow was deeper and the light from the house barely reached. We found Leo's phone first. It was lying in the snow. The screen was cracked but was still glowing. That's when panic finally hit everyone. We started calling the police, but service was spotty. The storm was slowing everything down. We were out there for too long. After what felt like forever, we heard something like crying, miles away. We followed the sound until we found him near an old service road, crouched behind a fallen tree. His face was red and wet. His hands were shaking so hard he could barely speak. He said someone had told him to come outside, someone who said he had something for him. He said the man had been waiting near the trees, and that the man tried to take his hand, but he pulled away and ran. That's when he dropped his phone. The man didn't chase him far, but he stayed close enough to scare him into hiding. By the time we found him, the man was gone. The police came later on and searched the area. They found tire tracks near the service road, partly covered by snow, but no faces, nothing useful. We went back inside after that, but nobody felt like celebrating anymore. The food went cold, the house felt too big and was now too quiet. Leo stayed glued to my aunt for the rest of the night. That week ended like it always does. The year changed, people went back to work, life moved on.